Hello, welcome to another edition of the Fearless 30. I am Jason Myers here on Cat 7. Of course, the Fearless 30 brought to you by our friends over at Wide World Wings as we get set for Fearless Fighting Championship 15, which is going down April the 12th. Westman Arena. Should be a great night of fights. And we have a very special guest joining us here in studio, and that is Mr. Ben Pierre Saint, who will be fighting for the 145-pound title coming up April the 12th. Ben, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's start off. Of course, your nickname is the Haitian Sensation. You were actually born in Haiti, correct?
Yes, I was born in Haiti. My parents decided to leave the country with my brothers when I was 3 years old, and that's how we ended up in Connecticut and stuff.
Okay.
And I grew up in Connecticut. I went to high school there, went to elementary, middle school. And then when I got 18, I was old enough to move out the house. I decided to move up to Minnesota, where MMA was perfectly sanctioned and legal to do. And I ended up going down there.
Now, we talked a little bit about this. Now, growing up in Connecticut, you were a great wrestler. You won state 2 times, is that correct?
Yes, I was a 2-time state champion, 3-time New England qualifier, 2-time county champion. My record, my season record after I was a senior was 146 wins with 37 losses.
Wow, it's amazing. What got you into wrestling? I mean, I don't know a whole lot about the Haitian community, but is wrestling big over there? Was it introduced to you when you moved to the States?
Wrestling was not really big in the Haitian community, but wrestling was big in my family. My older brother wrestled, and then my other older brother wrestled as well. And one of them ended up quitting, but the other one was a 1-time state champion and a 1-time county champion. And I kind of followed his footsteps a little bit, but I put my own little twist into it and had my own knowledge and was able to get up the rankings real quick, you know.
Did you play any other sports other than wrestle?
I tried football, but they were just too hell-bent on worrying about my size too much, you know, and my height and stuff like that. And I just finally gave it up when I got to high school and just committed fully to wrestling.
So you were a 2-time state wrestler, and like you talked about, we talked about a little bit before the show. In Connecticut, there's not a whole lot. In fact, back when you came up, there was no commission, so you were dealing with, you know, kind of dirty sportsmanship out there.
Yeah, it was. MMA was non-sanctioned back in Connecticut when I was 18, and that was when I was ready to move out the house, obviously. So it was non-sanctioned, so my options were either move or stay down there and find a job or something. I decided to move and start MMA, you know, start a career in that.
And you actually came up and went to school and wrestled up in Itasca, correct?
Yeah, I wrestled in Itasca. That's in Grand Rapids, Minnesota.
Okay. And then you, when was it when you started to say, okay, if I want to do this fight thing, I need to start taking it seriously. I got to adapt more in my game because, as you know, as you get into the cage, wrestling's a great base to have, but that's certainly not everything you need to succeed.
Right off the bat, I mean, I jumped into pro. I never went amateur. I just jumped into pro. My first fight was against Derek Abrams. It was at heavyweight, actually. I weighed in at 154, and Derek Abrams weighed in at 211 pounds. I ended up, you know, I used my hands a little bit, but it was mostly the takedowns and stuff that got me through. But after that fight, I saw a lot of things that I could work on, like my submission games, my knockout, my boxing, obviously, my kickboxing, and just everything. I saw a lot of weaknesses in my game, and I just wanted to perfect them. You know, I'm kind of like a perfectionist, you know what I mean?
Sure.
I kind of want to perfect everything in my game, and even at my job, I like to perfect whatever I do. I just want to be the best at it that I can possibly be.
We're here joined by Ben Pierre Saint, who's going to be fighting for the 145-pound professional title, Fearless Fighting Championship 15. Actually going up a weight class. Ben typically fights at 135. We want to say thank you real quick to some of our sponsors, including Harley-Davidson Sports Center. They have the first voice command for music, phone, and stereo on a motorcycle. Find out more about Project Rushmore and all the new features of the 2014 Harley-Davidson motorcycles at Harley-Davidson Sports Center, Highway 53 in Stebner Road, or call 729-9600, hduluth.com. So, Ben, you find yourself jumping right into the pro ranks. Like you said, you start out against a heavyweight, not just a heavyweight, but Derek is a tough guy. When you walked out of that matchup, were you like, okay, I'm hooked. This is what I want to do. I just need to find guys that are a little bit lighter in my own size?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, after the Derek Gabram fights, I didn't immediately jump into the lighter weight classes, but I just liked to fight. I mean, as a kid, I had a bunch of backyard fights. I remember the kids in my middle school putting my record on the wall and stuff, like 24-0. I just never lost, really, so I always wanted to do it, and I also felt like it was a good financial thing for me as well, you know, to help out my family, help myself out and my future kids if that happens, or any of that stuff, you know, just help me out financially, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And you know, you've made leaps and bounds, like you said. When you look back and you get ready for your first shot at a belt, when you look at Ben today, and you look at Ben getting set to walk in against Derek for the first time, you've improved a lot, but what's the one thing you can say, man, I can't believe how good I've gotten doing this one thing?
I'd have to say my jiu-jitsu. I didn't think my jiu-jitsu, you know, coming from a wrestling background, you know, I naturally don't like being on my back, you know. But I didn't think my jiu-jitsu would evolve so quickly and so well, you know. But I work at Inner Strength, which is like their main thing is to do jiu-jitsu down there. So, you know, it kind of makes sense to me now. But it's still hard to believe, you know, that my jiu-jitsu has gotten good to the point where I'm able to go with blue belts and black belts and brown belts and still hold my own, you know, and not just get submitted like a chump, you know.
And, you know, and that's the thing, you know, as a wrestler and people that come from a wrestling background, you and I talked about this, that's a hard transition because for years we're taught, you know, where to put our head, not to be on our back. And especially my big thing was I always wanted my head on the outside, and you know the second you you put your head on the outside, most likely you're getting choked out. And that is a hard transition for wrestlers.
That is true. I mean, they got it drilled into my head. You know, I've been practicing wrestling for like, 6-7 years now, and they got it drilled in your head. Just doing a double leg takedown, for example, you know. When you take the guy down, they always tell you, put your head out, stick your head out, and make sure your ear is right by his ribs, and then you drive him and take him down, you know. Like, they drill that into you. You do drill after drill, then you go live and you do the move, then you just do the move until your brain, it just becomes muscle memory. And then it's hard to take out. It's hard to, like, avoid, like, muscle memory that you've already had over the years, but somehow I managed to do it, you know?
So you come out of your fight, and we're getting ready for this championship fight, but what is it that you want to display on this fight? It seems like every time you see Ben Pierre Saint step into a cage, you show something a little bit different. Is there something different maybe that you want to work on this fight that you'd like to really get into?
I mean, nothing really specific, but I just want to show everybody, you know, I'm an all-around fighter, you know. I could beat you by decision. I could beat you by knockout. And I could beat you by submission now, you know. I just want everybody to know that I'm evolving as a fighter, and I will get to my goal of getting to the UFC or Bellator one day, you know. That's my whole point and my whole goal for this next fight.
Do you feel fighting at 145 is an advantage or a disadvantage for you?
I mean, for me, it's an advantage, you know, because I can have more strength up there, you know. Cutting down to 135, it's a tough cut, you know. I could say, you know, I lose some muscle doing it, you know. I lose energy doing it, but still I'm able to be strong and get through it and dominate my opponents. But I think at an upper weight, you know, I'm able to have more energy and have more strength with me and have more juice for me to just keep going the extra 2 rounds that they got me going, you know, because it's a title fight, you know, it's 5 5-minute rounds instead of a regular match, which is 3 5-minute rounds, you know. So
do you find that your cardio's affected at all when you go from the 145 to 135, or being a wrestler, do you feel like your cardio's always been pretty strong?
My cardio has always been pretty strong. You know, I run a lot. I do a lot of stuff like that to make sure it stays up there.
We're joined in studio here by Ben Pierre Saint, of course, as we get set for Fearless Fighting Championship 15 happening April the 12th. That is going to be at Westman Arena. Doors open at 5:30. Fist fly at 7 o'clock. Of course, lots of great stuff going on. We don't want to forget to tell you, if you want to come out and meet some of the fighters beforehand, of course, the Other Place Bar is going to be hosting the weigh-ins, which is on Friday, April the 11th. That's going to get going at 6 o'clock. So we invite everybody to come to the Other Place Bar and check out the weigh-ins. It's always a good time as these fighters get set to go to war the next day. And then after the fights on Saturday, we're going to be at the Ugly Stick Saloon. That is going to be over in Superior by the Shack. Invite you to come on out. Some of our great sponsors, Bill Thompson Law Office, Grumpy's Tavern. It's going to be a great night of fights. April the 12th. over at Westman Arena. And of course, Ben Pierre Saint joining us in studio. The main event of the night is you'll be taking on Billy Jokum. What do you know about Billy, Ben?
I know. I've heard Billy does some crazy stuff like flying knees, just unorthodox stuff out the random. But mostly what I've heard is that he's athletic, you know. So I'm also athletic, you know what I mean? But that's mostly what I've heard is he's athletic. There's not too much about him out there, though.
Did you find it hard when you're trying to prepare for this guy, when you can't find a whole lot of video on him?
It's hard, but at the same time, you know, learning, you know, from my losses in wrestling and going through a lot of stuff in wrestling, I tend to not even care about rankings, about what the guy does and all that stuff. I just worry about what I'm gonna do and stuff like that. I just let all that stuff go out the window, you know.
That's a good point. And you kind of run into different kind of fighters. You have the fighters that they don't game plan. They game plan, they actually screw their fight up because they're thinking too much. And you have the guys that they have a game plan. They see the fight in their head before they get in there. What kind of fighter is Ben?
I'm the fighter that, you know, I could see my hand getting raised, but I don't see, you know, any specific way or how, you know what I mean? Like, I'll see my hand getting raised, but I won't see it like, oh, with a knockout or definite submission or anything like that. I don't want to trouble my mind with things like that. I just know that I train hard and, you know, I have faith in my muscle memory and what I've drilled and stuff like that, you know?
And you have a great team, of course, at Inner Strength Martial Arts. You get to train with some of the state's best in there. And, of course, under Clever Luciano, I mean, there's a guy when you talk about jiu-jitsu, you know, he definitely knows his stuff, and he's passed it on to Rob, and Rob, of course, teaches you guys that. And do you feel having that in your corner gives you an advantage over most guys that you face with the pedigree of jiu-jitsu you're learning?
Yeah, it helps me out a lot because not only am I good in wrestling, but I'm also going to be good in jiu-jitsu, you know what I mean? And that's great benefit for the ground game. You know, I can go on the ground and be completely comfortable and not have to worry about getting submitted or any of that stuff. And I could also stand up on the feet with you, you know. I could kickbox and I'm fine with that. You know, that's just kind of natural ability, but I've also been working on improving that as well, you know.
We're talking to Ben Pierre Saint. Let's talk a little bit about your last fight, Ben. It was a fight that kind of blew up Twitter, or excuse me, blew up YouTube around here, started getting a lot of people going and view it. And let's talk a little bit about this fight. It was against Donald Williams, was it?
Donald Williams, yes.
And you went into that fight, and you know, at the time, of course, Donald's got a name here in the state. You were starting to get a little grumbling of names like, who's this Ben guy? Who's this Ben guy?
Yeah.
And you came in there and you made a statement.
Yeah, I mean, for most of my fights, you know, just coming in, starting off a career, just going in pro and not being an amateur or any of that stuff, I know I don't have a name. I know most people don't know me. You know, in Connecticut, they might know me for wrestling or whatever, but out in this area, they definitely don't know me. So all my fights had to be statements up until this point so I could earn a title shot or you know, get my name out there to UFC. So every fight, you know, I fight hard, you know, if it goes to the finish or not. Either way, I'm dominating every round. I haven't lost a round yet in my career, let alone lose a fight. You know, I just been doing everything I can to get my name out there, and I've been grinding and everything, you know.
7 seconds was the length of his last fight. When you went into that fight, I mean, it seemed like you knew what he was going to do. You saw that. It almost felt like when you watch it, and I've watched it quite a few times, it's like you saw that punch coming. I don't know if maybe that was something you picked up on tape, but you slipped it perfectly, and it was just the most perfectly timed shot that put him out cold.
I didn't see him on tape. Like I said, I don't do too much research. I just go out there and worry about what I'm going to do. You know, I saw, you know, Donald Williams was a cocky fighter and this and that. So right off the bat, I was already pissed off. But, you know, it's great because that's the type of company I'm in, you know, where I get to fight and let that steam out. So I went out, you know, Donald Williams threw a couple jags. I'm like, okay. I switched my stance. And I got the speed, you know. I got the speed over him, you know. I got the speed over most fighters, you know. And went out there and did my thing, threw that overhand right. I love that move, by the way. That's one of my favorite moves. Watch Chuck Liddell do it all the time. Just threw that overhand right, perfect timing. He went to sleep. And I just threw another punch to make sure it was a done deal. And then the referee got me off of him, and that was it.
And it was a great fight. And you know, having that has kind of propelled you a little bit, and now people are starting to realize, man, this guy up in northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, he's nobody to joke with. He's for real, and now you're going to get this title shot. What does it mean to put that title around your waist if you were to beat Billy?
It means a lot. It means a lot of triumphs and a lot of tribulations, a lot of things I've went through. Yeah, I'm young and this and that, but I've went through a lot in my lifetime, you know what I mean? And I had to go through a lot. After all, the sport that I chose wasn't the popular sport. It wasn't football. It wasn't basketball. It was wrestling. Who does wrestling? You know what I mean? Like nobody that gets rich obviously does wrestling. So, you know what I mean? Obviously, me coming from where I come from, you know, I don't have too many things, too much money or any of that stuff. So me choosing wrestling as my choice, you know what I mean, would be seen as not the best decision.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I did it out of the pure love of the sport, of what it could teach me and how it could help me grow as a man. And I also found the love of MMA as well through wrestling, you know?
It's funny because, you know, as you run into, you know, fighters from all across the country, and, you know, we've talked to plenty of them in this line of work, it just seems like the level of respect is always going to be there, but it seems like the guys that are the wrestlers and the jiu-jitsu guys, they have an appreciation of life. Is this something that you've learned through just your life experience or through wrestling and jiu-jitsu alone?
Yeah, I've learned through wrestling and some things I had to deal with outside of wrestling and sports, you know. I've dealt with a couple things. I've been suspended a bunch of times, got expelled when I was in kindergarten, all this crazy stuff in school. I had problems. I was a troubled kid. I had anger issues. I'd be the first one to fight anybody if anybody said anything wrong to me, you know. But as I've gotten to high school, I chose wrestling, you know, and I stuck with it, and it was a dedication to me. I had no energy to go out and just start trouble or be in trouble anymore. Wrestling just kept me in the zone, and my grades started going up, and it was just a great thing for me, and it helped out my life and everything, you know.
We're joined in studio here on Cat 7 by Ben Pierre Saint, who gets set to fight for the 145-pound featherweight title for Fearless Fighting Championship 15. We make our return back to Westman Arena. That is on April the 12th. 5:30 doors open, 7 o'clock the first fight goes down. We encourage you to get your tickets. You can pick those up at Benaford in Superior, Wide World of Wings. Of course, you can see your local fighters like Ben and get tickets as well. And you can also get them at the box office at Westman Arena. Encourage everybody to get your tickets. It's going to be a lot of fun, as we've had, you know, about 3 years away from Westman. It's going to be good to be back there and come check it out. Once again, we want to say thank you to some of our great sponsors, including Harley-Davidson Sports Center, who makes the show, and they're going to be the big center cage sponsor as well. Very excited to have them on. Bill Thompson Law Office, Grumpy's, The Other Place, and The Ugly Stick, all a part of Fearless Fighting Championship 15. Ben, as we look back over your career, and you know, it's a fairly short career. You're only 19 years old. Do you have goals set for yourself? Do you say, by the time I'm 21, I want to be here? By the time I'm 23, I want to be here? Or are you just kind of taking it all in right now?
I got goals for myself. I mean, right now I'm definitely not satisfied where I am in my career, you know. I've done a lot of stuff and this and that for my age, but I still feel there's more to be left done, you know. I have never stepped foot in the cage in UFC. I've never stepped foot in the cage in Bellator. And those are my main goals, you know. Those are the stages I want to fight for. You know, I want to make the kind of money those guys make. I want to be professional like those guys, you know what I mean? And that's kind of what I role model myself in my career after.
Who are some of your role models, first off, growing up, and now that you've turned your attention from wrestling to mixed martial arts, that you look up to now?
Growing up, I would have to say Chuck Liddell for sure. He was knocking everybody out. Everybody loved Chuck Liddell. And now that I pay more attention to MMA and I see like the technical side of MMA, I've realized like guys like, let's say for example, Cain Velasquez and guys like Renan Barão, just unique guys, you know what I mean? Renan Barão hasn't lost in like 3 years or some ridiculous amount of number. It's like 25 win streak or something like that. Submitting people, knocking people out, you know, decision people, you name it, he's doing it. And either way, he's coming out with the W. And that's why he has the belt today, you know? I try to role model myself after guys like that.
If you could fight anyone, doesn't matter if they're, you know, retired or they're still active, who would you love to fight right now?
Would it have to be in any organization?
Any organization you want.
Any organization. I'd have to fight probably I'd have to say the Bellator 135-pound champion, Eduardo Dantas.
Okay.
I think I could. I think I might be able to take him. I might be able to take him at 125. I mean, at 135. I might be able to take him.
Have you ever thought, I mean, is 135 where you want to stay for your career? I mean, you're still young and you're still, you still have muscle to put on. You're going to get, as they call it, I guess, that, for a lack of a better term, that man strength you kind of get when you hit your mid-20s. Do you think you can maintain that 135 status, or do you think eventually you'll want to go up a weight class to 45?
I think right now, if the UFC or Bellator or anybody was to give me a phone call and ask me to drop down to 25, I'd be able to do it.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I think 135 I'm growing into, and that's the weight class where there's competition and there's fights. 125, there's no, out around my area, there's not too much competition or too much fights out there for it. So that's why I don't go that weight class. There's no need to cut all that weight if, you know what I mean, there's not going to be fights left for me. So that's why I stay at 35. But for sure, I can make 125 if UFC or Bellator was to ever call me. You know what I mean? I think I'm just growing into 135 right now.
Sure. Well, we talked a little bit about this. I mean, obviously, this is the week of weight cut. And usually at this point, you have a bunch of fighters that are pretty aggravated and they're starting to get, they're getting hungry, they're getting thirsty. And usually by the time Friday rolls around, they're not very happy. But I mean, obviously this for you, you're what, 7 pounds away right now, which
6 pounds away.
Yeah, I mean, which is, you can do that the morning before weigh-ins.
Yeah, for wrestling, I cut 8 pounds the day before. I mean, 6 pounds is nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you find, I mean, and you bring up a good point. You can fight. You said that 125 if you had to. Obviously, you normally fight 135. This fight's 145. I mean, are you finding it harder and harder to find those fights at 135 pounds?
And that's the problem. Yes, I am finding it harder and harder. That knockout thing happened, and more guys are backing out, and less guys want to fight me at that weight class. So then, what I got to do as a fighter. I need to keep fights going, and I need to keep money coming in. So I've of course had to jump up to 145. Where there's fights. You know what I mean? But other than that, 135 is where I would stay.
There's a lot of top name 135ers out there that in this state that I think, I think about you and I think matching you up against them. And man, there's some definitely good ones out there. Obviously, you have a bright career ahead of you here. And now, if people want to come and follow you, I know you have your Facebook and I know you have a fan page as well. How can people find you on Facebook?
Just type in Ben the Haitian Sensation Pierre Saint. That's my fan page. Or you could just type in Ben Pierre Saint. That's my regular Facebook, And it's easy to spell it, you'll probably see it under this video, how to spell my name and stuff like that.
There you go. So check that out. And of course, it should be a great night. And, we're very excited to have you on the card. And, if you do walk away with the belt, I know you got a few things possibly in the works on the road as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, I got a few fights in the works. Speaking of walking out with the belt and stuff, I'd like to thank my sponsor, Puss Out. They are going to be selling Ben the Haitian Sensation t-shirts down at FFC during the fights and stuff. You guys should definitely buy them. They're going to go at $20 a piece. Nice. So I'd just like to shout them out.
Absolutely. It's always good. And you bring up a good point, and I know we're going to wrap things up here in just a moment. But, we hit on a lot of our sponsors, and, you just brought yours up. This is how we get the sport to grow. It's great when you can see these local companies that can sponsor fighters, sponsor fights, because everyone starts somewhere. You don't just go from, your first fight to, at a back corner bar to the UFC. It's got to build somewhere, and it's definitely nice to see sponsors come out there. And if people ever want to sponsor you, I'm sure they can find you on your Facebook page, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Either they can find me or find my manager, Rob Mortek, contact him and stuff. He'll tell me all the information, and you can sponsor me like that if you're interested.
Absolutely. Well, I tell you what, it's going to be a great night as Ben Pierre Saint puts not only his undefeated record on the line, but also a shot at that 145-pound title on April the 12th. And it's going to be a great night. I do appreciate you taking time and joining us.
You're welcome. I've got time for this all day. This is what I do. I fight.
There you go. April 12th. Stop out and see him. One more time, we want to say thank you to our sponsors here for the Fearless 30 on Cat 7. Harley-Davidson Sports Center, the first voice command for music, phone, and stereo on a motorcycle. Find out more about Project Rushmore and the new features of the 2014 Harley-Davidson motorcycles at Harley-Davidson Sports Center, Highway 53 and Stebner Road, or call 729-9600, online at hduluth.com. Don't forget, April the 11th, weigh-ins at the Other Place Bar located at 3930 Calvary Road, and that's going to be a great time. 6 o'clock, you can come on out and meet the fighters like Ben and some of the other ones and see the weigh-ins as we get set. We'll have tickets for sale out there as well. Also, after the fights are over, you can come out and party with some of the fighters over at the Ugly Stick Saloon, and that is next to the Shack in Superior. We'll have our after-hours party there. Thank you once again to Bill Thompson Law Office, Grumpy's, and every other sponsor that make this possible for Cat 7 as well. And make sure you get your tickets, once again, on sale. Benna Ford, you can pick them up. You can also get them at Wide World of Wings and at Westman. This is an all-ages show. If you're under the age of 18 years old, you have to have an adult with you. 18 and over, you don't need the adult, so get your tickets. Don't forget, if you're in college or in the military, present your college or your military ID for a discounted ticket as well, as we get set for Fearless Fighting Championship 15, the return, Westman Arena on April the 12th. Come on out and see us. I'm Jason Myers for the Fearless 30 right here at Cat 7.